The Philippines, the Filipino era, which is to say the next series after what previously and retroactively acquired a name, the English series, because all the language on the coins was in English, as had been from the beginning, other than the word Filipinas, other than the Spanish era coins, of course. So, 1967, the U.S. Mint was at last able to start making lots of foreign coins as they had been doing before. So, for the Philippines, they made a new aluminum 1 cent. They made a brass 5 cent. From what I gather, this is a slightly different alloy of brass than the previous 5 cent had been. This has more zinc in it. Okay, then a German silver, or it's really just copper, nickel with zinc in it, for all the other higher denominations. So here's the 10 cent, 1967, and the 25 cent for 1967. And then there's a 50 cent. These are actually struck in 1968, but they're dated 1967. Okay. There was also a commemorative issued from San Francisco Mint. It has kind of the same finish as a typical special mint set coin of that year. 25th anniversary of the Bataan March, 1 peso. This, of course, is actually the last appearance of the use of English on the Philippine coins made at the U.S. Mint. Well, next year continued the same production. There's 1968, 1 cent, mostly aluminum, small traces of magnesium. 1968, 5 cent. Not well struck, but it sure is a well-preserved specimen at least. 1968, 10 cent. Okay. And the 1968, 25 cent. Okay. 1969, it kind of continues. The 1 cent. For some reason, the 1969s look like somebody overstruck in 1968. They all look that way. So that's just the way the 1969 1 cent is. They did not make a 5 cent, but they did make a 10 cent. This is unfortunately the best 1969 10 cent I've found, which is not all that great. At least I had a really nice 1969 25 cent. Okay. And they had another commemorative, this time to commemorate Emilio Aguinaldo. Again, it has kind of a special mint set finish to it. Okay, the 5 cent would be made alternate years. You don't see a gap because they didn't do anything in 1973. But it's just 68, 70, 72, and 74, all the even numbered years. Now, 1970, no 1 cent. That's when they stopped making the 1 cent. Some people claim that exists, but none have ever been actually seen. This 5 cent seems to be as good as I can find for a 5 cent for 1970. Not too bad, actually. Alright, here's the 10 cent. Okay. The 20 cent. Okay, and the 50 cent hadn't been made since the original. Now, we had a commemorative here, and it came out in 3 forms, of which the intermediate form, the silver one, came from the U.S. Mint, San Francisco. This is 1970 and has the basic look and texture of what they call the blue Ikes, which is to say the 1971 Eisenhower dollars. They call them blue because they came in a blue envelope. And they look very much like this, as well as the 72, 3, and 4s, silver Ikes. So this could be almost like a dry run for that in a way, just to show the look. So, but in Canada, they made the low-end nickel version of the coin. It's actually magnetic, but it's pretty much the same picture. You can notice a few minor dye differences, though, in the way they look. Very subtle. Hard to make out. And the Sherritt Mint in Canada also made the gold version of this coin. Now it really looks different. I mean, his face looks, his eyebrows really pronounced, almost like a hooded eye, kind of there. Here it looks, a little closer to natural. So this is the gold version of this coin, but this was actually made in the Sherritt Mint of Canada. So they're not really American. Now, 71. There's neither a 1 cent that's been stopped after 1969, no 5 cent that's only in the odd years, but there's still the 10 cent, and there's still the 25 cent. Now, finally, the 50 cent gets reintroduced. And then, 72, now we have a 5 cent once again. And the 10 cent. And the 25 cent. Now the 50 cent, there was a bit of a delay in producing the American 1972 50 cent, which is here. So in the meantime, they contracted with the government of Singapore, where their chartered industries mint, to make some 50 cents of theirs. You can tell the Singapore edition by a number of different characteristics. The Singapore has a stronger edge. Ours does not quite so strong. Now, on the back, it's a bit more obvious still, though. I mean, with ours, there's almost no edge at all. And you can see the 1972 is kind of scrunched down. In the Singapore edition, it's kind of stretched and tall. Our shield is squarer, and theirs is somewhat taller. So you can kind of see, this is how you would know. You see this kind here, you'd say, okay, this is the Singapore edition. So, and this is the American edition. So that's kind of interesting to know. But the real great news, well, this was not American. The real great news for 1972 was the return of the peso to ordinary circulation. In fact, if you look closely on there, you might make out the letters FG for Frank Gasparo. Same guy who gave us the Eisenhower dollar with a somewhat similar design. Also gave the Philippines this new stunning portrait of Jose Rizal as the cover of the front of their newly returned peso. So that was pretty cool. In 1974, we not only have all the denominations brought back, but we even have a proof set. So for the first time since 1908, there is an actual proof set made for the Philippines. So this is the proof 1 cent. Okay. And then there's the regular 1 cent. We made a bajillion of these, and they barely circulated because the 1 cent had already become pretty much useless. Here's a proof 5 cent. Now you notice there's traces of rust around the edges, and here it's a little bit worse. Unfortunately, that's a real problem with the 5 cent. It's very, very rare to find these without any rust at all, or even just get it off the face of the coin. It's pretty rare. Here's the proof 10 cent. Wow. Oh, and here's the regular proof, the regular 5 cent. Now, a curious thing about these is you almost always find these rather expensive and in high grades. It seems as if these may not have been put into circulation, but instead are usually just cut out of mint sets. The other coins, however, were at least available in circulation. Here's the regular 10 cent. Okay, they had a proof 25 cent. and the regular 25-cent. Proof 50-cent. And the regular 50-cent. Okay. And the proof peso. It's a very beautiful coin when you get it in proof. Usually they're rather poorly struck. And then here's the regular one. This is actually a rather well struck specimen, but you can still see it weak around the sun's rays. And then, again, the Share It Mint in Canada decided to make another commemorative, this time 25 pesos. Yeah, so this would be silver, commemorating the Bank of the Philippines for 25 years. They have a proof version, and they also have what might be considered like an uncirculated or special mint set version. And then finally, because that was a proof set, the other thing they have for 1974 was the proof set itself for the Philippines, which, as you see, is rather unusual in having a package fairly similar to that of the American proof sets of the same time period. It is in these proof sets that the purple padding you see tends to disagree with the brass of the 5-cent, so when it's intact like this one is almost unheard of. And in the original proof set, well, let's just say I have to take very good care of that. But anyway, here we have it, the real set, the full set here of the coins made in the U.S. for the Philippines during the Filipino era.